I stood in the doorway of my library, watching two strangers rip books off the shelves I'd organized for 30 years. The woman, my nephew's wife, was filming herself on her phone, laughing. "Look at this dusty old junk," she said to her camera. "This is what passes for culture in Montana?" Not for long, guys. Not for long. My hands trembled as I watched her toss a first edition of Where the Wild Things Are into a cardboard box marked trash. That book had been read to over 200 children. In that moment, I realized something that made my blood run cold. This wasn't just about a building. This wasn't even about books. They were erasing me, my life, every sacrifice I'd made, every child I'd helped, every quiet hour I'd spent building something good in this world. They thought I was too old to fight back, too weak, too confused. They were wrong. I didn't cry, I didn't shout, I didn't beg them to stop. I just stood there, memorizing every word, every smirk, every careless movement, because that was just the beginning of my plan. My name is Eleanor Parker, and I'm 70 years old. For most of my life, I was a teacher. English literature, to be specific. I taught in the same school in White Pines, Montana, for 42 years. I watched generations of children grow up, leave, and sometimes come back with children of their own. When my husband James died 6 years ago, I used our savings to do something I'd always dreamed of. I opened a community library in the old fire station building downtown. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. It was ours, the town's. Every Tuesday and Thursday, children would come after school. I'd read to them, help with homework, sometimes just listen. For 6 years, that library was my entire world. Then Ryan called. Ryan was my late sister's son. After she passed, I'd helped raise him for a few years when he was a teenager. He'd moved to Bozeman for college, got married, and I hadn't seen much of him since. But when he called last spring, his voice was warm, familiar. "Aunt Eleanor," he said, "Melissa and I have been talking. We want to help you with the library." I felt a surge of hope, maybe even love. "Help how, sweetheart?" "Well, we've been following trends in community spaces. The library is beautiful, but it's dated. We'd love to help you modernize it, turn it into a real cultural center. You know, computers, media rooms, event spaces, something the whole state would notice." I hesitated. The library was perfect the way it was, wasn't it? But then I thought about the leaking roof, the outdated heating system, the kids who asked if we had tablets for reading. Maybe Ryan was right. Maybe I was holding on to the past. "What would that involve?" I asked. "We'd handle everything," he said. "Funding, contractors, design. But we'd need to put the building in joint ownership, just temporarily, for legal reasons. Liability, permits, all that boring stuff. Once it's done, it'll go right back to you. I promise. I should have known better. I was a teacher for 4 decades. I'd seen every kind of lie a teenager could tell. But when it's family, when it's someone you raised, you want to believe." So I signed the papers. Within 2 weeks, Ryan and Melissa moved to White Pines. They rented a house on the edge of town and immediately started assessing the library. Melissa was younger than Ryan, maybe 35, and she dressed like she was always about to be photographed, which it turned out she was. She was an influencer. That's what Ryan called it. "She has almost 50,000 followers," he said proudly. "She's going to document the whole renovation." "It'll bring attention to White Pines. You'll be famous, Aunt Eleanor." I didn't want to be famous. I wanted to keep reading to children, but they assured me everything would stay the same. Just better. The first week, they brought in a contractor to evaluate the space. The second week, they started removing furniture. By the third week, they'd taken down the shelves in the children's section. "We're creating flow," Melissa said, waving her phone around as she filmed. "Open concept, multi-use. You'll love it." I didn't love it. I loved the smell of old paperbacks. The wooden reading nook James built by hand. The wall where kids signed their names when they finished their first chapter book. All of it was gone. And then I saw the video. One of the mothers from town, Diane showed it to me on her phone. "Eleanor, I'm so sorry," she said quietly. "But I thought you should know." It was Melissa's social media page. The video had been posted 2 days earlier. In it, Melissa stood in my library, our library, with her hands on her hips, shaking her head dramatically. "You guys, I can't even," she said to the camera. "This place is like a time capsule from 1982. The woman who runs it, bless her heart, she's still using a card catalog. A card catalog. I'm not even kidding." She laughed. The comments below laughed with her. "Old people are so stubborn, lol. Just take it over already. She's probably senile." I sat there in Diane's kitchen, staring at the screen. Diane squeezed my hand. "Are you okay?" I looked up at her. My voice came out steady, calm. "I'm fine," I said. But I wasn't. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you love, this story is for you. That night, I went home and sat at my kitchen table. I didn't cry. I didn't call Ryan. I didn't scream or throw anything. I opened my laptop, the one James bought me before he died so I could email our daughter in Seattle, and I started a document. I titled it, Evidence. Then I went back to Melissa's page. I took screenshots. Every mocking post, every dismissive comment, every video where she stood in my library and called it outdated, irrelevant, a waste of space. I saved them all. I wasn't a lawyer, I wasn't a businesswoman, but I was a teacher. And teachers know how to gather facts, organize information, and present a case. For the next 3 months, I became a student of my own betrayal. Melissa didn't know I had a computer. She didn't know I understood email, contracts, or how to search public records online. She thought I was just some old woman who couldn't keep up. That was her first mistake. I started small. I went to the county clerk's office and requested copies of every document related to the library building: deed transfers, permits, contracts. The clerk, a young man named Joseph, recognized me. "Mrs. Parker, you taught my mom," he said with a smile. "What can I help you with?" "I need to understand some paperwork," I said, "for my records." He pulled everything. It took 20 minutes. When I sat down with the stack of papers at the library table, my library table, I saw it clearly. The building wasn't in joint ownership. It was in Melissa and Ryan's names. Only. I'd signed away my entire property. I felt the air leave my lungs. For a moment, I thought I might faint. But I didn't. I sat there, breathing slowly, staring at my own signature on the transfer document. They'd lied. Not just about the renovation, about everything. I looked up at the ceiling, at the light fixtures James installed, at the walls I'd painted, at the corner where I used to read Charlotte's Web to second graders every October. All of it. Gone. Stolen. But I didn't fall apart. I folded the documents, put them in my bag, and I kept digging. Over the next few weeks, I discovered more. Melissa had applied for a business license under the name Elevate Media Studio. The application listed the library's address. She'd contacted 3 real estate agents about selling the building. She'd taken out a line of credit using the property as collateral, and she'd posted a video, one I found buried in her archived stories, where she said very clearly, "Once we flip this dump, we're moving back to Bozeman and never looking back." I watched that video 5 times. Each time I felt my jaw tighten a little more. I wasn't angry anymore. I was determined. I started keeping a journal, a physical one, with dates, times, and names. Every time Melissa came to the library, I wrote down what she said, what she moved, what she filmed. I documented every contractor visit, every invoice, every receipt Ryan gave me that didn't match the actual work being done. I began reaching out quietly. I called the Montana Legal Services Foundation. I spoke with a lawyer named Helen Ortiz, who listened to my story and said very gently, "Eleanor, you've been defrauded, but proving it will take time, and evidence." "I have evidence," I said. She paused. "How much?" "Enough to fill a binder." She laughed, not unkindly. "Then let's meet." Helen became my ally. She reviewed everything I'd collected, the screenshots, the contracts, the financial records. "This is solid," she said, looking up at me with something like respect. "You've done investigative work most paralegals couldn't manage." I shrugged. "I grade essays for a living. This is just research." She smiled. "Eleanor, I think we can not only prove fraud, we can make sure they never do this to anyone else." "What do I need to do?" "Keep doing exactly what you're doing. Document everything, and whatever you do, don't let them know you're on to them." I nodded. I was good at keeping secrets. Meanwhile, in town, the whispers started. People saw the construction. They saw Melissa's videos. They saw Ryan walking around like he owned the place, which, legally, he did. Some people came to me with concern. "Eleanor, are you sure about this renovation?" asked Pastor Jim from the Methodist Church. "I'm sure," I said with a smile. Others were less kind. "Maybe it's time to let the younger generation take over," said Brenda Holloway at the grocery store. "You've done your part." I smiled at her too. Maybe you're right. Inside, I was taking notes. If you've ever felt invisible because of your age, you'll understand what I did next. I let them think I was fading. I played the part of the confused old woman. I asked Ryan to explain things twice. I fumbled with my phone in front of Melissa. I even forgot a few people's names on purpose. They ate it up. "She's losing it," Melissa whispered to Ryan one afternoon. I was standing 10 feet away, reorganizing books. "Just a little longer," Ryan whispered back. "Once the sale goes through, we're done here." I didn't react. I just kept shelving. But that night, I added their conversation to my journal. Evidence. Always evidence. By late summer, I had everything I needed. Helen and I met one final time in her office in Billings. "Are you ready?" she asked. I thought about James, about the kids who used to sit cross-legged on the library floor, about the life I'd built in this town. "I'm ready," I said. "Then let's make this right." The White Pines annual charity gala was held every September at the community center. It was the town's biggest event. Everyone came: families, business owners, the mayor, even a few state representatives if we were lucky. This year, the theme was investing in our future. Perfect. I'd been on the planning committee for 15 years, but this year, I stepped back. I told them I wasn't feeling well, that I wanted to enjoy the event as a guest. They understood. They even sent me flowers. What they didn't know was that I'd been working behind the scenes with Helen, Pastor Jim, and the director of the Montana Community Foundation. We were planning something bigger than a gala. We were planning justice. Ryan and Melissa received a formal invitation in the mail. It was embossed, elegant. It invited them to attend as honored guests in recognition of their contributions to White Pines' cultural development. Melissa posted a photo of the invitation online. "Finally getting the recognition we deserve," she wrote. "Can't wait to celebrate." I saw the post. I didn't comment. I just added it to my file. The night of the gala, I wore my best dress, a deep blue one that James always said made my eyes look brighter. I arrived early and sat near the back. Ryan and Melissa arrived fashionably late, dressed like they were attending the Oscars. Melissa's heels clicked loudly on the wooden floor. She waved at people like a celebrity. No one waved back. She didn't notice. The evening began with dinner, speeches, the usual acknowledgments. Then Mayor Donald Griffin stepped up to the microphone. "Tonight," he said, "we have a very special announcement." Melissa leaned forward in her seat, smiling. For over 40 years, Eleanor Parker has been the heart of this town. A teacher, a neighbor, a friend, and now a philanthropist. The room turned to look at me. I gave a small smile. Tonight, we are honored to announce the creation of the Eleanor Parker Scholarship Fund, endowed with a generous donation that will provide educational support to White Pines students for generations to come. Applause filled the room. Melissa's smile faltered. Ryan looked confused. The mayor continued. Eleanor has also transferred ownership of the library building, recently renamed the Eleanor Learning Center, to the White Pines Community Trust, ensuring it will remain a space for learning, growth, and connection forever. The applause grew louder. Ryan's face went pale. Melissa's mouth opened slightly, and then the mayor said the words I'd been waiting for. Eleanor has asked to share a message with you all tonight. Please join me in watching. The lights dimmed. A screen lowered from the ceiling, and my face appeared. I'd recorded the video a week earlier in Helen's office. On screen, I sat in a chair, my hands folded in my lap. I looked calm, steady. I began to speak. Good evening, White Pines. If you're watching this, it means I've made my final decision about the library and my legacy. I paused. For 6 years, I poured my heart into that building. It was a place of love, of learning, of community. I believed it would continue long after I was gone. Another pause. But recently, I learned that not everyone shares those values. The screen changed. It showed screenshots, Melissa's videos, her mocking posts, the comments calling me senile, outdated, irrelevant. Gasps rippled through the room. I continued. I also discovered that my nephew and his wife fraudulently transferred ownership of the building into their names with the intent to sell it for personal profit. The screen showed the deed transfer, the real estate listings, the credit application. Ryan stood up. Sit down, someone hissed. He sat. Melissa's face was bright red. On screen, I kept talking. I was hurt. Deeply. But I didn't want revenge. I wanted justice. So I worked with legal counsel, the community foundation, and this town to make sure the library would be protected forever. The screen returned to my face. The building now belongs to all of you. The scholarship fund will help your children. And as for those who tried to take it, I smiled. It wasn't cruel. It was just final. The law will handle that. The video ended. The room was silent. And then, slowly, people began to stand. One by one, they applauded. Not for Ryan, not for Melissa, for me. If you've ever wanted to stand up for yourself but didn't know how, this moment is for you. Melissa tried to leave. She grabbed her purse, stood up, and headed for the door. But Helen was standing there, calm, professional. Melissa Harper, she said clearly. I'm Helen Ortiz, representing Mrs. Eleanor Parker. You're being served with a civil lawsuit for fraud, breach of contract, and defamation. She handed Melissa a folder. Melissa stared at it like it was on fire. You can't... You can also expect a visit from the Montana Attorney General's office regarding your fraudulent loan application. Ryan stood up, his face pale. Aunt Eleanor, please. We can talk about this. I stood too. I walked slowly to the front of the room. Every eye was on me. I looked at Ryan. Really looked at him. You were family, I said quietly. I would have given you anything. All you had to do was ask. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. I turned to the crowd. Thank you all for being here tonight. The library is yours now. Use it well. Then I walked out. Outside, the September air was cool and clear. I stood on the steps of the community center, looking up at the stars. Diane came out and stood beside me. Eleanor, she said softly, that was the bravest thing I've ever seen. I shook my head. It wasn't brave. It was just necessary. Still, you stood up. You fought back. I smiled. I did, didn't I? She hugged me. And for the first time in months, I felt light. The lawsuit moved forward quickly. Helen was thorough. We had everything: documents, videos, emails, financial records. Melissa tried to delete her social media accounts, but it was too late. Everything had been archived. Ryan tried to apologize. He called me 3 times, left voicemails. Aunt Eleanor, please. Melissa pressured me. I didn't know it would go this far. I'm sorry. I didn't call him back. Some betrayals don't deserve a second chance. 2 months later, the court ruled in my favor. The building ownership was formally transferred to the White Pines Community Trust. Melissa was ordered to pay restitution and faced potential criminal charges for loan fraud. Ryan filed for divorce shortly after. I heard he moved back to Bozeman, got a job in construction, started volunteering with a youth mentorship program. I hope he learned something. Melissa disappeared from social media. Some people said she moved to California. Others said she just changed her name and started over. I didn't care. She was no longer my problem. If you've ever wondered whether standing up for yourself is worth it, let me tell you, it is. The Eleanor Learning Center officially opened in November. The building had been restored, not modernized, but restored. The wooden shelves were refinished. The reading nook was rebuilt. The children's section had new carpet, but the wall where kids signed their names, that stayed. On opening day, over 200 people showed up. Kids ran through the aisles. Parents browsed the new biography section. Pastor Jim gave a short blessing. And in the center of the room, there was a plaque. It read, "True wealth is not what you keep, but what you give." Eleanor Parker. I stood there, looking at it, and I thought of James. He would have loved this. I didn't live much longer after that. By the following spring, my health began to decline. The doctors said it was my heart. Congestive failure, they called it. I wasn't afraid. I'd done what I came to do. In my final weeks, I stayed home. My daughter Rachel flew in from Seattle and stayed with me. She read to me from the books I used to read to her: Charlotte's Web, Anne of Green Gables, To Kill a Mockingbird. One afternoon, she closed the book and looked at me. "Mom," she said, "what you did with the library. I'm so proud of you." I smiled. "I'm proud of me too." She laughed, tears in her eyes. "You really showed them, didn't you?" I did. "Do you regret any of it?" I thought about that, about Ryan, about Melissa, about the months of planning and pain. "No," I said. "I don't. Because it wasn't about revenge. It was about doing what was right." Rachel squeezed my hand. "That's the difference, isn't it?" I said. "Between revenge and justice. Revenge is for you. Justice is for everyone." She nodded. "I'm tired, sweetheart." "I know, Mom." Rest, I closed my eyes, and I felt free. I died on a Tuesday morning in late April. The funeral was held at the library. Over 300 people came. Former students, parents, teachers, people I'd known for 50 years, and people I'd only met once. Rachel gave the eulogy. "My mother," she said, "believed in kindness. But she also believed in strength. She taught me that being gentle doesn't mean being weak, and that standing up for what's right sometimes means standing alone." She paused, looking out at the crowd. "She also taught me that family isn't always about blood. It's about who shows up, who stays, who fights for you when you can't fight for yourself." She looked at Diane, at Pastor Jim, at Helen Ortiz in the back row. "You were her family, and she loved you." After the service, people lingered. They walked through the library, touching the books, reading the plaques, sitting in the chairs. One little girl, maybe 6 years old, tugged on her mother's sleeve. "Mommy, who was Mrs. Parker?" Her mother smiled. "She was a teacher and a hero." "What did she teach?" "She taught us that it's never too late to do the right thing." The little girl thought about that. Then she walked over to the children's section, picked up a book, and sat down to read. Today, the Eleanor Learning Center is still there. Every year, the Scholarship Fund awards grants to White Pines students. Over 50 kids have received support so far. The reading nook is still the most popular spot in the building. And on the wall where kids sign their names after finishing their first chapter book, someone added a new line at the very top. It says, "Eleanor Parker, first reader, forever." That day, justice was finally served. Not with violence, not with cruelty, but with patience, with truth. and with the quiet power of a woman who refused to be erased.